Introducing Scott Ritter's YouTube channel, a platform dedicated to discussing the Russian-Ukrainian conflict. Scott Ritter, an expert in international relations, provides in-depth analysis and commentary on the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. With his extensive knowledge and first-hand experience, Scott Ritter offers unique insights into the historical background, geopolitical complexities, and humanitarian aspects of the conflict. Join his channel to gain a comprehensive understanding of the crisis, including its impact on regional stability and global politics. Through well-researched and balanced content, Scott Ritter's YouTube channel serves as a valuable resource for anyone interested in delving deeper into the Russian-Ukrainian war.
Thank you for that. I'd like to ask your opinion on a question that might have some political sensitivity. So if you can't answer it, I respect that fact. But I think the entire world was watching with great interest the Battle of Bakhmut, Artyomovsk, and the role played in that battle by Wagner PMC. Wagner's been withdrawn from the front line to regroup, re-equip, but there's an ongoing Twitter war, so to speak, Telegram war between Yevgeny Prigozhin and the Russian Minister of Defense, Shoigu. If you could discuss a couple things. One, from your perspective, how important was Wagner to the victory in Bakhmut? And is there going to be a role for Wagner going forward? Is Wagner going to play a role in the continued fight against Ukraine? And what is going on between Prigozhin and Shoigu from your perspective? Is this serious? Is this a game that's being played to confuse the Ukrainians? Or does this spell trouble for Russia?
This is not the precursor of a trouble for Russia. And I cannot comment on that conflict between Prigozhin and Shoigu. This is not my position. And if we assume that this is some game in order to confuse the enemy, so certainly I cannot comment on that. How can I comment on that? And probably there is a conflict. And probably this conflict started from the times of Syrian battles. Always, male teams have some disputes. Whatever happens between them, whatever disputes and conflicts they have, I think that any moment it is needed, the private military company Wagner may re-emerge anywhere in Ukraine and would be totally unexpected by the Ukrainian forces and start exterminating them. The importance of the Bakhmut battle is not about the significance of that city. No, it is not so important militarily or strategically. Some Ukrainian leaders, when the battle for Bakhmut started, when PMC Wagner started its offensive in that direction, on that part of front, some would say that Bakhmut has some strategic significance, and if there is no Bakhmut, there will be no Ukraine. But in essence, what strategic meaning it may have, if our strategic significance is to, for instance, conquer Slavyansk or Konstantinovka, then probably yes. Bakhmut would be very significant for that. But if it is not our strategic goal, and I'm sure that this is not our strategic goal, our goals are much more large-scale and more strategic. And so this is not my insight, so this is my personal opinion. So Bakhmut never had any strategic significance. This is one of many settlements that we have to overtake. But what Wagner PMC did in Bakhmut, that's very important. The losses that Ukrainian forces suffered there is tremendous. And actually, you cannot even grasp these figures. I think it would be right if the Ukrainian forces withdraw from Bakhmut in late February. It would be a very right military decision because they would preserve their personnel, they would preserve the hardware, and they would make use of these people right now. But bear in mind that Bakhmut battle, that includes defeating Ukrainians in Solidar, and now one was intending to make a cauldron in Bakhmut when the Ukrainian forces were outflanked in Bakhmut, but it was not a full siege, it was not a cauldron. So this cauldron was left open so that Ukrainians would supply reserves to that cauldron. And do you think that Zelensky actually did a lot for that sake? It was all of a sudden so important for him to maintain that media success, so exchange the lives of his soldiers for likes on the media. According to different estimates, they lost about 50,000 personnel, and they lost jets, they lost tanks, and also, for instance, our aircrafts were striking the areas next to Bakhmut, I mean Chasov Yar, etc. So the losses in Bakhmut were tremendous. And I do think that it also had to say on the failure that they have in terms of their today's counteroffensive. And as many say, that inexperienced mobilized soldiers were supplied to Bakhmut by Ukraine. Well, actually, this is not totally true. So the elite forces were there, and all the elite brigades were deployed there. And for instance, some elite brigades would be dispatched to that, it would suffer some losses, then it would be withdrawn, some another elite brigade would be dispatched, etc., etc. And the flanks were being defended by the special forces, special operations forces. So these like Green Berets, and these people just disappeared. They no longer existed. A lot of seasoned and experienced officers were killed there. The ones who were fighting for Ukraine starting from 2014. Some high-profile names we heard there, and another important thing that Wagner PMC did. It has become a horror, a nightmare for Ukrainian soldiers, just like memories of Bakhmut and the very mentioning of Wagner horrifies them. And many soldiers, Ukrainian soldiers, said on TV that they are eager to go anywhere but not to Bakhmut. Wagner, for them, has become a boogeyman, as you put that, in the United States. Something scary. And once Wagner reemerges anywhere in Ukraine, so it would demotivate immediately any Ukrainian detachment. The significance of Bakhmut cannot be overestimated. So that's very important, hugely in that sense. But in terms of the territory, so the whole settlement is not so significant.
Well, thank you for that. Look, we're about out of time, so I have one last question for you, and it's a little bit different in nature. But given the level of violence that is taking place, given the horrific casualties that are being suffered by the Ukrainians and the casualties being suffered by Russians, given the ongoing shelling of civilian areas in Donetsk, Lugansk, and elsewhere by the Ukrainian forces, there is a tremendous amount of bad blood that exists today between Ukraine and Russia. Someday this war will come to an end. You are from this area. There was a time when you lived peacefully with your Ukrainian neighbors. Do you ever envision a time where Russians and Ukrainians could live side by side in peace once this war comes to an end?
Well, look, Not just I lived in a Ukrainian neighborhood. I was born in Ukraine, and until 2014 I lived in the city of Kyiv, so I'm from the very middle of Ukraine. When the war started on Donbass, I joined the ranks of Donbass militia, and I was defending the people of Donbass with the weapons. I knew what consequences would be entailed by the coup d'etat, and I understood very well why the army was sent to somehow bring to order Donbass in March 2014. Donbass certainly was not satisfied with the fact that the very first laws that was taken by the Ukrainian Kyiv regime that came to power by means of a coup d'etat, the very first laws were about banning the Russian language as the second official language. And the second law was about lifting ban on use of Nazi symbols. So these were the very first two laws that were immediately adopted. And certainly the Russian-speaking population was not just in southeast parts of Ukraine. So Russian-speaking people were living in the central part of Ukraine as well. So more than 70% of Ukrainians would be speaking and thinking in Russian. And they were banned from doing that immediately. And certainly I realized very well that this public protest that actually would be somehow addressed by means of force. And that's why Ukrainian Nazis were dispatched. The right sector, some Ukrainian nationalist organizations, Maidan, Self-Defense, and other Nazi troops were sent to different cities. And they called that the train of friendship. So the train of friendship is running to the cities of Donbass. So they used this term in order to scare the people. So in Kharkiv, they managed to suppress the mutiny. The same was done to Nikolaevsk, to Zaporizhia, using these skunks from Nazi organizations. They somehow broke up the lines of the demonstrators, but they failed to do that in Donbass. First, they would arrive to Donetsk. The Pravy sector or the right sector would arrive to Donetsk or to Luhansk, and they wanted to set their own rules, but in essence, they were beaten, literally beaten by local people. And then in March 2014, the regular army was dispatched, was sent to these cities. And the Western media says that everything started with Slaviansk, with Strelkov coming to Slaviansk. But this is not true. It is in March 2014, with Slaviansk and Strelkov, that Ukrainian regular troops were sent to Donbass. And the troops were sent not to give flowers to the local people. This is how the war in Donbass started. So Donbass took a decision to fight. Other regions failed to do that, but we prevailed. So since then, it all lasts. The conflict is going on. What will be in future? Certainly, no one is going to kill anyone or to beat anyone up just because, after our victory, when we recover our territories, we will not kill anyone for the people not supporting our ideology. But speaking about the war criminals, certainly they will be brought to justice. And other citizens, other residents, well, certainly not. Well, I hope that I answered your question. Sorry for being so spontaneous.
No, first of all, it's a very emotional thing for you. It's a deeply personal issue for you. So don't apologize for being honest and open about such a thing. I appreciate your answer, not only for that question, but all these questions. It's been an invaluable session. And again, I want to thank the guest, Daniel Bessonov, a former minister in the Donetsk People's Republic. He's currently a war correspondent reporting on events in the Donbass. I hope you enjoyed this show. I hope you learned something from it. I think it very much was in keeping with the motto that applies here, that knowledge is power. So thank you for joining again, and I look forward to seeing you next week.